of the Oracle ERP Cloud for the Office of the CFO. In order to illustrate the value of a completely unified and seamless solution for the Office of the CFO, we have prepared 3 end-to-end business flows in the areas of operations, management, and period close. My name is Jeff Jacoby, and I am joined today by my colleague, Michael Gobo, and we will be hosting this session. But before we begin, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast console you are looking at can be completely customized. You can resize or move any of the windows that you have open. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any questions during the demonstration, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. We will answer them via email. Additional materials are available in the resource list widget that looks like a folder at the bottom of your screen. The following is intended to outline our general product direction. It is intended for the informational purposes only and may not be incorporated into any contract. It is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, or functionality and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. The development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for Oracle's products remains at the sole discretion of Oracle. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk specifically about the Office of the CFO. And the Office of the CFO has been transforming. Finance is transforming and has been wanting to transform for a number of years. And if you think about that transformation, it's really the idea of moving from the concept of a classic finance organization where an enormous amount of time is spent collecting data, collating data, formatting data, maintaining spreadsheets, a lot of manual processes, where weekends are spent catching up. Moving and transforming to this idea of an agile finance organization where members of the Office of the CFO are doing what they were hired to do, which is bring value to the organizations that they work for by interacting with decision makers, by performing value-added analytics, by spending their weekends on things like family time. So, what precludes many organizations from achieving this modern, agile finance experience? Well, one of them is silos. Would you design your business this way? Well, of course not. Having silos, unless you're an agricultural concern, is a problem. If you think about it, the silos didn't just happen overnight. In the world of the on-premise software, maybe you deployed certain solutions over a period of time. These silos were born. Now, the idea of the cloud is this is an opportunity to get rid of those silos, to go with one vendor who can offer a complete, comprehensive, and seamless solution across each and every need in your organization. And that's what today's session is about. It's about you. How do we equip you to become that agile, modern finance organization, to break through those silos and those barriers? So if you look at this slide, you'll see many different job titles, many different roles in the typical organization, from the CIO to the VP of Finance, the CFO, those individuals involved with procurement and human resources, and a list of different objectives, some of the top objectives of each one of those roles in any organization. Now, each one of these roles has many different challenges. And what really is the root cause of the challenge for these tasks that need to be performed is really a lack of a common and unified set of capabilities within their underlying technologies. One of the most fundamental needs in any business is the need to grow. In order to grow, finance must invest in not only plant, property, and equipment, but also people. Recruiting and hiring is critical to ensuring that the right people are in the right place to do the job and to deliver on the corporate goals and objectives. Imagine having one solution, one singular platform that addresses any role that will allow your organization to do any function. This will allow you to accelerate the speed of business through collaboration across business functions and provide deep and rich insight across the organization. Now just imagine doing any one of those functions anywhere on any device. So in the morning, luxuriating at your suburban palatial estate before you head to work, maybe looking at an iWatch or some iPhone, maybe it's some mobile component. Then you get into your vehicle and travel to the office. Now, I'm not advocating texting at work. That's not what I'm saying. Maybe you're interacting through voice. And getting actually to the office and using that museum quality desktop at the office and doing your work there and then finishing your day by traveling at home. The idea with the solution is we can do our work when it makes sense on the device that makes sense. It's almost like a more humanistic approach towards work. Think of the carpenter shop in the pre-industrial area. It was adjacent to the home. The carpenter could work when it made sense. In many ways, this is a return to that more humanistic approach towards working. So think about it. Any role, any function, anywhere, any time on any device, and to address any pain associated with the office of the CFO. And if you think about it, the Office of Finance has tremendous responsibilities as a steward of the corporation's financial assets. Their ability to efficiently and effectively manage, account for, and drive profitable growth globally while ensuring compliance is critical to the business's ultimate success. CFOs have been trying to address many common business challenges, even with all the technology that has been leveraged over the years, and despite those investments that have been made, there's still problems, there's still pain, and there's still challenges. The idea with the Oracle ERP Cloud is to now have this new set of technology enablers to once and for all finally address this wide range of pains. So speaking of the Oracle ERP Cloud, this slide really illustrates from a business process perspective just how comprehensive it is, covering things from global accounting from supplier invoice to payment, customer invoice to receipt, asset acquisition to retirement. Every one of those critical business processes, a comprehensive set of capabilities to address those. On the top of the slide, you'll see things like mobile, which we already discussed, things like social, the ability to have a contextual and meaningful dialogue on any business event, transaction, or report across the organization. The Financial Reporting Center, a single, unified, solitary place to do all of your reporting. The Oracle solution has many different powerful reporting capabilities. Imagine accessing those in one singular place. Things like watch lists, right? The modern executive is busy. They need to be informed of just the things they need to see. The watch list is a great way to illustrate those things that they need to focus on. And of course, analytics. The ability to put the analytics in the hand of every single user to do their job more efficiently, to do what they were hired to do, to bring that value to the organization. And of course, integration with things like well-known and used tools like Microsoft Office, just part and parcel of the solution. Well, we've gone through a lot of slides, and I think it's time to look at some software, so we're about ready to do that. Now, before we get into these end-to-end business flows, we want to take you through just a navigational experience. What will you see when you log into this ERP Cloud? When you come to work, you're going to be excited. After the deployment happens, you're going to have a burst of energy and sit down and log in. And what we're going to focus on is really 4 things, and we're going to focus on these in the demos. One, it's beautifully simple. What does that mean? Well, it means greater end-user adoption, less investment in training. And what you will see in these demos is the ability to log in regardless of who you are in the organization and absolutely be comfortable in that environment and get productive from day one. It's distinctly unified. It's a seamless experience across all of these business areas, not just finance, but the entire organization, supply chain, sales, human capital management, as well as finance. It's instantaneously insightful. The ability to see the information you need to see at an instant and drill all the way down to the underlying root cause of maybe an issue that's happening within the organization. And it's uniquely complete. No other vendor but Oracle can offer such a wide breadth as well as depth of solution. So let's take a look.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Well, let's go ahead and get started with a pretty exciting demo that you're going to see. And what I'd like to do is actually start off with the 4 tenets that you just mentioned, Jeff. And so the first thing is the system, the solution is beautifully simple. I mean, it allows you to minimize the learning curve, increase user adoption, and as you can see, it is absolutely a gorgeous system. Second thing, which we'll illustrate, is it is distinctly unified. You're talking about a singular solution in the cloud that touches upon human resources, finance, accounting, procurement, projects, supply chain components, marketing, sales, service, all in one singular system. And the other thing is instantaneously insightful. So this is about providing the right information in real time to the right person with the correct information. So you'll see that here shortly. And then the last thing is uniquely complete. So it not only has a wide array of capabilities to help run your business, but it is also very, very deep. So with that said, let's go ahead and start off with distinctly unified. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm logged in as Amy Marlin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly tap on her forehead. And the thing is, you want to be careful not to actually click her eyeball because you'll give her a black eye. And it'll take about 3 days for the actual photo to update itself. But nonetheless, I clicked on Amy Marlin, and as you can see, there's some very valuable information about Amy. So this is information, human resources information about Amy Marlin, talking about her address, her phone number, about her, areas of expertise, areas of interest, address, location, all those various components. Another key area is her employment information. So we use this at Oracle. And so if you can imagine, when I personally log into our cloud solution, there's a lot more boxes down at the bottom. So Amy has had one change of management, a manager, over the course of the 12 years that she's been here. I've actually been here almost 11 years. I've had over 5 managers. It's not really Oracle. I'm hard to manage it, but nonetheless, lots of boxes and lots of great information relative to Amy or myself or whoever's utilizing this system. The last thing is it's about providing skills and qualifications, and this is a very useful set of capabilities. And so imagine you have a very special project and you have a pretty extensive set of resources across a global organization, and how do you find the best fit for the best or for a particular project? Well, these skills and qualifications allows you to do that very, very easily. So this is just a very small tidbit about how a singular unified system operates, interoperates with all these other modules. In this case, we're predominantly focusing on finance and accounting functions, but nonetheless, there are features that are very useful that come from other pillars, like human resources or sales, service, commerce, or supply chain, or whatever the case may be. Well, before I also continue, what I do is actually give you a quick tour. Familiarize yourself with this solution. And it doesn't matter what solution you're using, what module, it's all the same. And so at the very top left-hand corner, we have what's called a navigator. And the navigator are simply all the things that have been granted to you from a role and responsibility perspective. Well, the thing is, you may not use all these features all the time, but it's good that you have access to them. And so what you're able to do is you're able to personalize the home page, what you see in front of you. So you're able to actually put these in subfolders if you like, or make them single launchable so that when you click it and it launches that particular module. So you have complete control as to what are all the things that have been granted to you, but what are the features and functions that you want to get access to on a very rapid basis, and you can actually tailor your home page to do so. At the very top, we have what's called a universal toolbar. And the universal toolbar is simply that, universal. And what that means is it doesn't matter what module you're in, however deep you are within a module, you always have access to this universal toolbar so you can get to the navigator or these various options onto the right-hand side. And so what you're able to do is you're able to actually specify and tailor and assign favorites. So very similar to favorites on a browser, you're able to say, you know, these are the things I want to have access to. No matter where I am, I want to go ahead and run Financial Reporting Center or whatever the case is. So you're able to tailor that. And what's great about it is it doesn't matter what device you load, you launch this application, whether you're on a tablet device or a Smithsonian device, which I think Jeff called it, which is the desktop. It doesn't matter what device you are on, this follows you wherever you're at. The other thing to take a note is alerts, and so alerts are simply workflow notifications. And so there are 3 notifications for workflow, and it tells me a lot of stuff about what I need to do. It might be something that I need to take action on, maybe approve, reject, ask for more information, or it might just be for informational purposes only. But nonetheless, it all appears in one singular place. The other thing I like to touch upon is watch list. And watch list is a phenomenal set of capabilities. And in the past, what would happen is, as you were approaching month end or period end or quarter end or year end or whatever the case is, what you would do is you would have to go through a variety of different modules to discover what are the exceptions. Whatever the exceptions are, invoices that are on hold, journals that need to be approved, whatever the case is. And so here you're able to go to one singular place called the watch list. And the watch list identifies all the exceptions that are occurring relative to your specific role, your specific set of responsibilities that have been granted to you. Now, in the area of finance alone, finance and accounting alone, we have over 200 watch lists, all pre-baked, all ready to go. And you're able to turn them on, turn them off, as well as create your own. So you're able to do that all in one single place. Now, the other area I like to focus on is our social collaboration capability. And so what you see here where Amy Marlin is, this horizontal section, this is the centerpiece of our application. And so this is basically collaboration embedded in your solution, allowing you to capture meaningful and contextual dialogue about a transaction, about a business event, about a report. And so you're able to collaborate with your peers, with your colleagues, with coworkers, with your teammates, all within one singular place, as opposed to, as in the past, what would happen? You would send out an email. You'd probably maybe write Post-it notes, and all those things are disconnected. They're not part and parcel of the system. And so what we've done is we've taken the time to embed social and collaboration capabilities into a singular place. So let's take a quick tour of what this looks like. Here you're able to embed employee information. So that way you can, do a wide broadcast to your greater organization. As you have these meaningful and contextual dialogue, you'll notice that there's categorizations of these things, these events. And so they get automatically categorized. So as you have conversations in payables, journals, purchase requisitions, projects, wherever you're having these conversations, they automatically get categorized so it's easy for you to find, whether they're related to performance documents, expense reports, you name it, it automatically gets classified that way. Now let's go into these purchase requisitions. And so there's 2 occurring right now. So there's laptop. So there's somebody probably starting, so I've been engaged, I've been invited in this conversation. There's also this menu, and this menu is the same menu that you saw above, and so there's general conversations, conversations about people, conversations about performance. There's also conversations that you can personally flag, or somebody can flag you so that you pay a little bit closer attention to these particular items. And so what I want to do is focus on this particular conversation here. And so one thing to note about these collaborative, meaningful, and contextual dialogues that you're having is that you can have a private conversation, which simply means that I explicitly am inviting someone to this conversation. It could be someone or people, right? So I invite Jeff, Tom, Fred, Jack, so it could be an explicit conversation. I could also have a public conversation as well, which simply means that I have posted a conversation that everybody in the organization could respond to, can partake in that conversation. As well as I can have a conversation with external folks. So imagine having a conversation with a supplier or somebody who's helping you drive a project or whatever the situation is. And so you can have that. And what's great about it is that we give you a visual cue. And so this purple ribbon is a visual cue depicting that this conversation is also visible to outside users. So that way, as you partake, as you respond, as you engage in that conversation, you're a little bit more, you're cognizant obviously, but you're a little bit more careful as to how you reply and how you interact because you know that somebody external is also engaged in that conversation. And so that is basically pervasive throughout the entire environment. Whatever you're doing, whether you're planning and budgeting or going through the close process or you're transacting through payables or projects, it doesn't matter where you are, this social collaboration capability is pervasive throughout the environment. So we briefly talked about how beautiful the system is because you can simply see that. Distinctly unified is basically how all these major business processes are part and parcel of a singular cloud solution. And the next thing I want to touch upon is this whole notion about having information at your fingertips instantaneously. And so I'm going to give you two flavors of that. The first one is relative to payables. And so imagine a payables manager. In fact, if I could go back to that particular role, I would love it because this information is absolutely valuable. So imagine being a payables manager, logging into your invoice work area and having this graph here telling you what are the next things that are due today, the next 7 days, the next 14 days, however far you want, and then being able to easily filter this information. And so notice that the information down below is contextual to how I'm filtering my graph up above. And what's great about it is that we further empower you by giving you further filtering capabilities, and so you can further filter it by maybe dragging and dropping, including more due dates, whatever the case is, you can do that. In addition to that, here's a quick sample of a collaborative conversation about several invoices that Carrie is engaging in, Jamie Frost is engaging in, and so now this collaboration is taking place, and I can either respond and partake in that conversation. So this particular view is about providing you instant information about valuable key pieces of information that pertains to your role and area of responsibility. Well, what about the executives? And so what we want to do is actually spend a few moments talking about that, and we have several flavors. This one is project related. This other one is related to general ledger components. And so this allows me to easily tailor this information. I can actually make them smaller, so I can expand them. I can drag and drop this information if I want. I can twist and turn. So I can have a variety of different ways I can actually look at this information very, very easily. I can expand. I can drill into this information. I can go into journals and further explore the journals, maybe approve and reject. And so it's not only really providing you key performance indicators at a very high level, helping you drive your business, helping you glance and identify possible areas of concern, and then possibly begin the act of scan so that you can determine, well, out of all this information, which one is the area that I might want to go further, and then ultimately drill into the ultimate level of detail, which is what we call commit. And so we provide that to you. And so you're able to identify it at a high level, inspect it a little bit further, and then ultimately possibly take further action. And so one of the things that we provide, this is out of the box, guys, but not only do we try to make you a very happy customer, once in a while you're going to feel kind of melancholy. There's no way we can guarantee happiness, 24/7, 365 days of the year, but we're able to also burst you back into happiness by way of this particular functionality. So if at any point you're feeling kind of melancholy, you're feeling kind of down, we can actually brighten up your day through what we call a sunburst. And so what we have here is a sunburst which actually amplifies key areas of concern. And so what we have here are your major geographies that you actually operate in. We notice that EMEA is having some issues, and so what we want to do is drill down into that. And what we notice is out of all the areas of EMEA, Africa is of main concern, and specifically Africa, the line of business called pharma. So the pharmaceuticals division is actually having some issues. And so when we drill into that, we discover that what really has happened is that we had a major shortfall, pretty significant shortfall. This is roughly 20%. We were forecasting $926 million, but we came in 20% below that. Well, the good news is because we have a distinctly unified environment and supply chain is part and parcel of a singular global solution, we're able to drill into the supply chain area and discover that the reason we missed our targets was that at the last minute, at the last piece of the reporting period, there was a severe weather. And that really prevented us from shipping product to our customers. The good news is we didn't lose any product. It's still sitting in our warehouses. We weren't able to recognize revenue because title didn't transfer. But the good news is we're going to have a wonderful period the following period.
Thank you, Michael. That was a wonderful overview of the look and feel of the application. We're about ready to start and take a look at some of those end-to-end business flows that we discussed. So up first is Amy Marlin, project manager. You see her in this slide. She's luxuriating at her favorite artisan local roast coffee shop when she receives a notification from management informing her that the expansion project needs to be completed sooner than initially planned. In the old days, before her organization deployed Oracle's ERP Cloud, this would pose many challenges and cause her to feel somewhat anxious and stressed. Fortunately, with Oracle's ERP Cloud, Amy remains calm and relaxed as she logs in to easily handle the request. So let's take a look.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get started. We actually first started off with providing a look and feel of the solution that we have, which is a fantastic solution. And what we're going to actually focus on is actually Amy Marlin. And Amy here is responsible for projects, and management has asked that we accelerate the completion date of the expansion project. And so typically that's a pretty difficult task. Luckily, because she's enjoying herself at the coffee shop, she's able to do that at her leisure and actually easily reply to this request. And so what we want to do is first take a look at various key performance indicators relative to her projects. You just want to simply glance at all these various things, possibly scan, and then possibly take action depending on what's taking place. And in this case, she most likely will have to take action because management has explicitly asked that she condense her project down because they want to accelerate the opening of this particular project, the expansion project. So the first thing is she wants to take a look at the health. Okay, the health is okay. There's 16 criticals, nothing new. She's expected this, so that's okay. She's going to be okay with that. She also wants to inspect the projects, the progress, and so here she has various progress and various projects that she's responsible for, and so she can easily drill into the expansion project and look at it and understand how it's flowing, what is the Gantt chart, maybe she needs to move resources, and what is the actual impact of condensing the schedule to costs as well as resources. And so she's going to take a series of steps to actually determine all that. We have headcount here, so we can actually expand. We can drill into these things. We can actually have a social collaboration conversation with our HR brethren. So in this case, we noticed that headcount is not performing the way we intended. We actually had a 2% attrition assumption, and it doesn't look like it's actually following that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage in a social collaborative conversation with our HR folks, and here is an example of that conversation where Amy has invoked the conversation with our HR brethren and wait for her to respond and wait for her to do the appropriate analysis to determine what is the root cause of attrition being larger than 2%. So she's going to go through that particular set of steps. Well, now that I know that what's taking place, I kind of get a sense of progress, I get a sense of our health, I get a sense of, head count. Well, I got to do some analysis relative to this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my strategic workforce planning set of capabilities. And we had originally set our headcount plans relative to a 2% attrition rate. Here I'm going to have to modify the plan and to ultimately accomplish this acceleration that has been placed upon me by management. And ultimately it's about finding the right people in the right places. So where am I expanding? So this expansion happens to be in several locations happening relative to the U.S. And so it's about finding the right people in the right place at the right time and ultimately and hopefully at the right cost. And so these set of tools certainly allow me to do that. And so here I can actually see the skills summary, where are most of the folks landing, as well as how the impact is going to be relative to FTE as we expand. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and update our forecast. And so we originally had a 2% attrition assumption. And so what I want to do is I want to actually update it with 10%, and that is going to then automatically update the entire model and drive, in this case, actually more hiring because the attrition is a lot higher than what we originally anticipated. So I go ahead and save that, click Done, and I can actually start my exercise in doing that. And what I want to do is after I've done that, I actually want to review the actual budget cost. And so I got one out of all my projects that I'm managing, one is over. And as I further inspect, the one that is over of any significant amount is basically this particular project. And so as I drill into it, I can understand why that particular project is over budget and what are the things that I need to actually do to bring it into within budget. Well, remember that I started this conversation, I started a social collaborative conversation relative to headcount with our HR folks. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and log in as Betty. Betty is our HR representative. And so Betty is going to receive a notification, and it's going to be flagged. So notice that we're going into our collaborative capability, and Amy has basically started a conversation with Betty and has specifically flagged Betty so that she can take this on and make sure that she responds to it. Well, what I want to do is actually go into my workforce modeling, and here I can actually, and go into my expansion project, and here what I want to do is I want to actually compare my current project plan and what the impact is versus the new target. And so recall that we've changed our attrition rates. It went from 2% to 10%. And what is the impact of that? And the impact is that we need to actually hire more folks that we intended. So attrition is also impacting us, as well as expanding, so condensing the project. So those are the two main factors that is requiring us to accelerate the hiring of new folks. And so because we have a singular unified system, we can strategically plan our workforce. We can work with HR so that we could hire these folks, so we can actually put out the plans and start the recruitment processes earlier than originally anticipated, and get those folks onboarded properly through the proper learning capabilities that our cloud solution provides, and get them enabled and effective within the project as fast as possible. So with that said, I'd like to thank you, and again, back to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Michael. That was a fantastic demonstration. It's really great to see how seamlessly Amy was able to navigate through the application. Well, up next, one of my favorite flows, the management flow. It features Frank Taylor. So let me introduce you to Mr. Frank Taylor, VP of Finance. Frank has just been notified that management has established new revenue targets for the entire organization. And Frank is tasked with how best to achieve these new goals. These types of exercises always seem to occur on Fridays. And Fridays in the past, before the deployment of Oracle ERP Cloud, that was hugely problematic. This type of request would consume Frank as well as his whole team for the entire weekend. Not any longer, thanks to the Oracle ERP Cloud. Let's watch Frank as he easily and seamlessly responds to this request. So let's take a look.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Back on me again. I love it. So what we're going to focus on, what Jeff just said, is the management flow. And the task here really is about trying to figure out where there is more profitable growth. And so Frank Taylor has been tasked with that. And there's going to be a series of exercises relative to sales and operations planning. And so we're going to go through that. But first, before we do that, we have to kind of get a sense of where we are at. And so what we want to do is actually do some analysis, actually run some reports. And so we're going to go into our reports and analysis capability and run a variety of different reports. And we're going to focus on profitability overview. And so this is a great view. It gives us all customers, profitability at the customer level, all customers, specific retailers, departments. You specify how you want to break this out, because it's going to be dependent on your organization how best to utilize this information. And so what we want to focus on are all customers year to date. And so here we have what's called a whale curve and a profitability identifier. And what we want to do is actually focus on the bottom 10%. And so here are the bottom 10% of customers. And I'm able to not only identify the bottom 10, but also identify the top 10 as well, and run a report to see, well, why is there a significant difference? So the top 10 customers, if you will, are on the right-hand side of this particular report, while the bottom 10 customers are at the left-hand side of the report, and it's giving me significant information, profitability at the customer level. And so one of the things that our cloud solution provides is what we call a strategic P&L. And so the GL, the general ledger, provides you the ability to render reports to satisfy statutory requirements, US GAAP, IFRS, those various things. But at the same time, there is this monumental requirement to understand profitability well beyond your chart of account. And so what you're looking at here is basically those set of capabilities that allow you to extend your dimensionality, extend your chart of accounts beyond your accounting system, and be able to ultimately provide you profitability by customer, by region, by product, you name it. You specify how best to run your specific business. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and actually go back to the very front page. And what I want to do is actually spend some time just analyzing how effective has our campaigns have been. And so here, because we have a singular cloud solution that not only touches upon human resources, manufacturing, but also touches upon sales, marketing, commerce, service, all these customer experience capabilities. And so you're able to actually draw that information in a singular view so that you can do your job much more effectively. And so what I need to do is actually ultimately adjust my new targets. And so I'm looking at my marketing financial campaigns, my marketing plan, and so I can analyze this and ultimately change the information based on these new targets. And so what we have done is management has tasked us to find more profitable growth, greater profitable growth, and focus on the top 10 and also address the bottom 10%, or 10 customers that we have. And so ultimately working with our marketing department, our development group of products, we've discovered that the best way to actually increase our profitability is by introducing new products. And in this case, we're going to introduce the goat hair brush. We're going to introduce a new version. We've had quite a great run with our old goat hair brush, but what we're going to introduce is a new version of that. And so we've gone through a series of exercises to determine that's the thing that we're going to focus on. And again, because we have a singular, unified solution in the cloud, we're able to actually go through that process of innovating, discovering which of the products we want to do, so product lifecycle management, all the way to manufacture, all the way to delivery to our customers. But at the same time, there's a lot of financial implications of that. And so how do we actually capture all that? Well, I'm showing you that. We're able to actually have a singular environment to do that. So here we go through a series of exercises, identify the various ways that we want to engage from a marketing perspective to bring awareness of this new product. What are the drivers that ultimately impact this particular new product? And we certainly could take models from other product lines and utilize it and then modify this to tailor it specifically to the goat hair brush product line. So we're able to forecast our revenue, utilize driver-based costs, drivers to ultimately determine the impact of this new particular item that we're bringing to bear to market. Well, the good thing or the interesting thing about this whole exercise is that we have to go through a sales and operations planning process, which is a very strategic and collaborative exercise. And it has 4 predominant pieces that we're going to focus on. One is there is a demand review. So how did we establish this demand? And we'll go through that. The next thing is, well, great. We can believe that we could build 1 billion of these things, but can we actually manufacture them? And so we have a supply review process as well. And then ultimately there's 2 remaining steps, which is a financial review, which is the viability of this product from a profitability perspective. Can we actually do it in line with the targets that we have established up front? And then lastly, the executives have to buy off on this process. And so we're going to step through that right now. And so we're going to go through a series of steps to determine that. And so here we have the increase in demand. And so at the bottom, we have what's called a new product vitality. And this simply just says that out of all the products that are considered new and they're still in an upward swing, an upward trend, bringing revenue, increasing revenue, is considered a new product vitality. At the moment they start tailing down, they start trending downwards, that's when it comes off this list. And so out of all the products that we have, 64% of them are contributing to growth. Well, the green bubble is 74%. And what that signifies simply is that if we were to introduce this new product, the goat hair brush, we believe that we would have an increase from 64% to 74%. And that is based on statistical forecasting, utilizing marketing activity, utilizing sales history. So maybe there's a product that was like it that we want to leverage to determine it. And so we have that as well. And then also, we also take into consideration the new targets that have been established by the finance folks that we just went through. Okay, so that's great. Now, the next thing that we want to do then is, well, okay, that's wonderful, but how does that really align with our financial forecast? And so we have a demand forecast, and so what we want to do is actually compare that to our financial forecast. So here basically the great view of that is a comparison, a forecast value comparison. And so we have our new consensus that we've established, and it actually is meeting what has been determined by the marketing department. So the marketing department has determined that if we were to introduce this new product, we indeed will have increase in revenue. And you know what? As we go through this process, engage marketing, finance, all these other groups, from a consensus perspective, we also believe that is the case. And so here we have the various product lines depicted here, and we do notice that there's a large uptake relative to brushes. Well, relative to the brushes is great, but specifically, let's go ahead and drill into it. What brushes are actually contributing to this? And we then do notice that, okay, so really what's contributing to the growth is indeed the goat hair brush, the one that we have established. So the blue bar is the marketing forecast that has been established, and we do indeed believe that we can actually achieve these new demands. Well, it's one thing to come up with our assumptions that we can increase demand, but it's ultimately we need to determine whether the manufacturing team can actually produce. And so when we actually plug in this new demand into our model, into our manufacturing processes, we do determine that we are way overloading our resources as well as our supplier network. And so we're way over capacity. So we're at 111% relative to resource, almost 112, and we're almost 118%, so 18% over our capacity relative to suppliers. And so what naturally happens here is that the manufacturing team, they discuss ways to mitigate this. Maybe they add a third shift. Maybe they outsource this to individual or other suppliers other than the ones that they're currently working on, still retaining the quality that that we need to achieve. But nonetheless, they go through this exercise in determining whether we can actually achieve these new supplies and relative to the manufacturing process that we have. And so what we're going to do is the manufacturing team has plugged in these new capabilities, whether it's adding a new shift, adding outsourced suppliers, and now with that we have a new plan. And the new plan simply shows us that, you know what, if we were to add a third shift, if we were to increase our supplier network and bring in new suppliers to the mix, we can certainly actually meet this new demand. And so the overloading of resources, we're slightly over 100%, which is acceptable because we can easily achieve that by slight overtime. And from a supplier perspective, we can also achieve that. And so the two remaining steps after we've determined our demand and we've done our review relative to the demand, and we've also gone through the supply review, the last two steps is for the financial folks to do their review, to determine whether this plan is viable, that it's within the profitability target that we have established from the beginning. And so the financial review takes place, and then ultimately all this is then boiled up to the executive team for their final review and their final buy-off. And so with that said, this is simply to illustrate that we have a singular, unified set of capabilities that touches upon, in this case, supply chain capabilities, finance capabilities, extensive reporting capabilities, as well as bringing in marketing capabilities in the mix so that you can easily determine whether these plans actually make sense.
Wow, that was fantastic, Michael. It was so nice to see Frank easily navigate through those applications and solve a challenge that historically would consume a weekend or many hours, and many different people from his staff. Fantastic. Well, up next, the close process. I'd like to introduce you to Kerry Lane, a modern proactive controller who prides himself with knowing the depth and breadth of his company's financial operation. Kerry never wants to be caught off guard with anything, including the period close. Luckily, with the Oracle ERP Cloud, he's able to leverage a comprehensive and seamless set of capabilities to orchestrate, monitor, and manage the entire period close process from end to end, from record to report. So let's take a look.
Thanks, Jeff. Yes, and this is the last of the main flows that we're illustrating today, and it's about the period close, as you mentioned. And so the period close really has three main steps if you think about it. In its simplest form, it's a very mechanical process. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. So we certainly help orchestrate that. The second thing is it's about analysis. As you do these mechanical steps, there's going to be activity that relates to analysis, determining and certifying and attesting that these numbers are what they should be. And so therefore you feel comfortable that when a financial statement is prepared, you're feeling very comfortable that that is well represented. And then lastly, it's about reporting. So it's a mechanical process, it's an analytical process, and certainly then it's about reporting. And so hopefully you haven't forgotten, as I went through the getting you acquainted with the environment, one of the things I walked through was this whole notion of watch list. And if you think about a period close, what better function to help you streamline the period close by providing you all the exceptions that are taking place throughout the month so that you can deal with these things before they are actually due when you have to deal with them at the period close. So the watch list is a very capable set of functions that identifies exceptions based on your area of responsibility, as your specific role, and you're able to address them on a real-time basis and not having to wait until period close. Well, in any case, leverage that. Our customers do, and their period close process has been significantly reduced just by that particular function alone. Well, the next thing I want to do is focus on various period close set of capabilities. The first one is about orchestrating. It's about providing a closed calendar. And so what you see here is the closed calendar. These are all the functions that are related to me. And if I want to actually see this in a Gantt chart, see what's next, see what's behind schedule, see what's ahead of schedule, literally being able to drill into each task, being able to actually identify key desktop procedures relative to that particular task, understand the workflow associated with that task. Before I finish this, I have to start this other thing. Before I start this other thing, this other task needs to be finished. So all those various components are part and parcel of the solution. And also being able to see from one single view all the assignments. Who is actually responsible for all these various steps so that we have a very clean close process. Well, one thing that is pretty consistent in a close process are allocations. Whether you're performing allocations, in a variety of different methodologies, we provide a pretty extensive set of capabilities that highlight how these actual calculations were done. So imagine not only doing the calculations, the allocations themselves, but being able to visually see what specific departments were impacted, have the necessary traceability of how these numbers came to be. And so in this case, I have approximately $1.3 million that I'm going to allocate out, and what departments were impacted. This is a great view relative to Kerry Lane as the controller, but imagine being the recipient of those allocations and truly understanding where those allocations came from and how they were derived, what were the drivers that ultimately calculated those allocations. And so we provide that out of the box. Now the other thing too is the close process. The significant piece of closing your books is about journals. If you've already closed all your subledgers, or if you're in the process of closing your subledgers, they're easily depicted here. But now let's just focus on journals for a second. And so this allows you to drill into those journals and easily understand what journals are outstanding, further inspect them by drilling into them, or if you want, you can approve or reject all from within this simple screen. So I easily identify the journals, easily give you the ability to inspect, have that collaborative conversation if necessary, and then approve and or reject those journals. So it's really about identifying and providing you great insights and allowing you to take action into those. I noticed that we have some open ledgers here. In this case, it's assets specifically. And so what I want to do is I want to go and actually close it. And here you can actually see how easy it is to close the subledgers. And so we have lots of subledgers. It's payables, receivables, assets, projects. And to close them, you easily just drill into them, click close, and move on. So very, very easy. Well, one of the other steps that are pretty significant relative to the close process is tax provisioning. And so we have pretty extensive set of capabilities relative to tax provisioning, allowing you to not only calculate your provisions, but also allow you to collect your provisions from, let's say, your international subsidiaries. So they go about the calculations, but you still ultimately have to collect them, aggregate them, and then provide a singular view. And so we provide that out of the box, as well as country-by-country reporting. That's a new requirement that's actually taken hold, and so we provide those set of capabilities as well, all related to the close process. And if you want to drill into a standard financial report, you can easily do that as well, and drill into the details, ultimately understand this information very, very easily. And in this case, very, very quickly. Okay, so what I want to do now is that gives you basically a quick sense of mechanically orchestrating the process, allowing you to run a variety of different reports and run a variety of different functions like journals and allocations, which are in most cases very mechanical. Well, in some cases, you also want to do some analysis, and in this case, we're going to focus on account reconciliation. So there's a variety of different reconciliations taking place. I can drill into that set of reconciliations. I can view this at a very high level where we stand, how many reconciliations we've done out of the 939 reconciliations, how many have been reviewed on time. So we have a very good percentage here. 92% of the reconciliations are being reviewed on time. There's actually 160 reconciliations that have some sort of warning. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus my attention there. I'm going to drill into that. I get presented with a list of all the various reconciliations that are in a warning state, and you define what constitutes a warning, what establishes a warning, what threshold, what condition has occurred that invokes a warning. And so it's highly configurable, and you define exactly that. And ultimately, I can drill into these warnings and further discover why this warning occurred. And what ultimately happened is that an adjusting journal entry for benefits has not yet been posted, and so therefore I'm going to engage in a social collaborative conversation with Carrie. Carrie's going to converse with Jack, specifying that a journal is missing and is causing a variance that we weren't expecting, and so let's go ahead and take care of that right away. So this allows me to easily identify possible warnings because of thresholds that we stipulated and do some analysis and figure out what action to take. Well, at some point, we want to run reports. And in this case, what we're going to run is a 10Q report. We're going to prepare a 10Q report. And before I actually do that, notice that I actually have an alert. And the alert here is that I received is about the quarterly SOX control certification. And what I want to do is I want to actually drill into it and get a sense of where we're at with that. So we have a variety of different certifying questions, right, so that we can achieve the 302 certification. And we got some details as well. Who has already accepted and has answered these various questions and who hasn't. So this gives me a bird's eye view of all that in one single place. And so we have risk management embedded in our solution, allowing you to feel very comfortable that what you are ultimately preparing and presenting is accurate and also timely. Well, what I want to do now is actually go into our 10Q. And the 10Q, what we allow you to do, what we help you do is orchestrate the process of putting very sophisticated books together, whether it's a 10Q, a 10K, a budget book, whatever the case is, a board book, we help you orchestrate that. One thing that Oracle has done very, very well for decades is that we've been able to help our customers generate numbers. We've done that for a long, long time. Help you capture numbers, generate numbers. Another thing that we've done for a very long time very well is, well, we have great numbers, we have all these numbers, we also help you visualize those numbers. So allowing you to take those numbers and visualize them in charts and graphs and whatnot, and we've been able to do that for a number of years as well, decades as well. Well, one thing we haven't done, but we do now do, is allowing you to take those numbers and allowing you to take those charts and allow you to capture color and meaning around those charts and numbers. And 10K, a 10Q, a board book, a budget book, those are great examples of books that have not only numbers and charts, but have extensive narratives around that. And so the way we help you orchestrate that is through a three-step process. One is identify the author, the distinct author of each section of the book. So we have a cover and a signature. We have various sections of the book, maybe broken out from a financials perspective, consolidated reports, a cash flow, balance sheet, you name it. And what you do is you break out this book into distinct sections, identify the appropriate author, who's responsible for authoring that distinct section, have a complete review of those sections that ultimately will aggregate into a singular book and then sign off. And so we have all those capabilities readily available to you. And so here is the actual book itself. We have some comments that are taking place in a particular area. In this case, it looks like financials look good based on some comments. We're able to actually add more comments, further comments, and we're able to also post and close these comments. And these comments live with this document for as long as you want them to. Ultimately, when you go through that process of capturing the numbers, capturing the narratives, capturing the charts around this document, you want to publish the book. And ultimately what it does is it publishes the book, and in this case it is a 10Q, and it's made up of lots of numbers, lots of narrative, lots of charts, and this is all done utilizing an integral part of our reporting set of capabilities in the cloud. With that said, back to you, Jeff. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Michael. It was fantastic to see Carrie navigate seamlessly through that period close. I also love to see Amy and Frank going through operations as well as management. So what is really the value behind all of this to the finance organization? It's really equipping and enable you to become that new agile finance organization. And it's characterized by three things. I call them the three pillars of value: efficiency, effectiveness, and lowering risk. So efficiency, we're able to do things with less effort, less people involved with those tasks. We can do them as well as we can be more effective, which means doing them more quickly, closing the books more rapidly, all while lowering risk, increasing transparency, governance, and visibility across all of these critical business processes. So on behalf of Oracle, thanks for joining today's webcast. And remember, who can bring you all of these amazing capabilities? Only Oracle can. Thank you.